In 1937, Napoleon Hill published a manuscript that established a specific technical protocol for wealth accumulation. The text provides a rigorous psychological framework for cognitive behavioral alignment, detailing how internal states dictate external outcomes. Hill identifies the central challenge of human ambition, the extreme difficulty of bridging the void between an abstract thought and a physical reality. This transition is frequently dismissed as the result of luck or unexplained mysticism, factors that cannot be duplicated or engineered. But Chapter 6 isolates a specific operational engine intended to eliminate that mystery. Hill defines this engine as the imagination. Defining this faculty moves ambition from a mystical wish to an engineered process. We can model this process using a standard systems pipeline. On the left is the input, abstract desire. This is the initial state of an objective, existing only as a mental impulse. On the right is the final output, physical reality. This represents the tangible assets or achieved goals. Between these two states sits a black box, the processing node that must convert electrical signals in the brain into physical matter. Hill identifies this central link as the imagination. He explicitly defines this as the workshop of the mind, an active, structured environment where ideas are processed into plans. The objective of this analysis is to map the specific psychological pipeline operating inside this workshop. Hill justifies this framework by looking at observable natural laws rather than abstract theories. He uses a biological comparison, the process by which a single microscopic cell organizes itself into a complex human being. This cellular division is a highly organized sequence, where a single unit of information builds a complex functioning structure. Just as a cell contains the complete architectural blueprint for the final organism, a specific desire contains the intent required to construct a physical result. This biological organization is replicated through cognitive branching. A raw impulse enters the mind and begins dividing into an actionable task list, identifying dependencies and required resources. The imagination provides the necessary environment for this growth to occur. It is the incubator for the plan. If the mental environment is hostile or passive, the organizational process stops. The idea fails to divide and remains a static wish. Hill asserts that once a desire is properly incubated in this workshop, it follows a structured developmental path toward materialization. To demonstrate how this workshop processes information, Hill cites the case of Dr. Frank Gonzalez. Gonzalez was an educator who set a specific institutional goal for his career. He required exactly $1 million to establish a new technical college. This isolates the initial disconnect between his mental state and his external environment. Externally, his situation showed zero capital and no potential donors. Internally, however, he provided the imagination with an exact figure, $1 million. Vague inputs, such as wanting enough money, cause the mental workshop to stall because the system lacks the specific coordinates to render a plan. This indicates that absolute clarity of intent is the mandatory fuel required to engage the imagination. Clarity of intent was only the first phase. The gap between thought and capital still remained. To bridge that gap, Gonzalez had to trigger a behavioral response that forced the cognitive system to output a plan. We can track this through his action timeline. The critical trigger was his decision to deliver a public sermon detailing the specific curriculum and purpose of the college he intended to build. Crucially, this action was taken before he secured the capital. The $1 million was only offered after the sermon was complete. Acting with absolute assurance forces the imagination to generate the specific pathways needed to support that reality. This behavioral trigger creates a unified block where the internal state and external reality are forced into alignment. Preparatory action, acting as if the outcome is already achieved, is the mechanical switch that forces the cognitive workshop to render a tangible plan. This allows us to finalize our map of the cognitive pipeline. The central processor is the imagination workshop. Inputs of desire, faith, and autosuggestion flow into the center for processing. The workshop outputs organized planning, which solidifies the target into a physical reality. Individuals who bypass this central processing phase find that their ambitions remain perpetually abstract. The imagination is the singular transition processor linking internal ambition to external execution. This system provides a rigid blueprint for achievement in any modern field. The external environment yields to individuals who properly engineer their internal intent. Success is determined by the rigor of this cognitive architecture, not by circumstance or luck. As Hill states in his final assertion, success requires no explanations. Failure permits no alibis. Mastery of the mental workshop is the single and only differentiator between a passive wish and a physical reality.